All right, ladies and gentlemen, MrSotko here. Welcome back to the channel. Got a whole bunch of good crypto news stuff for you today, but before we get right into it, it's shill time. It is shill time. Just like my favorite time. And Coinbase has some new Coinbase Earn programs. Most of you probably already know by now, but Coinbase does these little earn programs, and it's basically like, take a quiz and earn free crypto. And it's actually kind of significant, especially if you invite others as well. However, I got two of them for you today. So if you guys haven't done these ones, that's going to be in the description below. And it's also going to be my pinned comment as well for those of you who don't like checking out the description, because that seems to be a weird thing with YouTube. People do not like the description box. So in the comments as well, there will be two of them. I think like 4 people can sign up to each one of them. So get to it, I suppose. Anyway, moving on. First mover, Wells Fargo Bitcoin briefing could signal bull run intact. And this is actually quite interesting because it's Wells Fargo. So all of these major banks, they really hate Bitcoin. And they sure gave Bitcoin a tough time, particularly in 2017. Maybe 2018 as well. But it seems like all the institutions and everybody's kind of turning around to it. They called it a fad in 2017 and 2018 and also 2019 and pretty much every year before that, even though Bitcoin was out for basically a decade at that point. And now just all of a sudden, now that it's back to 20,000, whoa, it's just not a fad. We probably should get investing into this. So PayPal and all these institutions are coming along here pretty fast. So 2021 is going to be an interesting year, in my opinion. I think really the whole market is actually here now, and it's not just like some whales and some people that bought it because of BitConnect in 2017 or because of ICOs and stuff. It's actually like institutions are buying $10 billion worth of Bitcoin. So pretty big difference. Bitcoin was lower for a second today, dropping below 19,000 after bulls failed to push prices past the psychological 20,000 threshold, which is something I talk about too, because people are stacking those sell orders at 20,000 because they don't think it's going to go over 20,000, and kind of for good reason. I mean, 3 years ago this happened, and nobody wants to miss out on that high at the moment, and not as many people. It's sort of like a buyer anxiety. Not a lot of people want to buy over 19,000 because they're afraid that it's going to dip below 19,000. Which we'll get to in just a moment. The overly confident market has dampened, the Norwegian crypto market analysis firm Arcane Research wrote Tuesday in a report. In traditional markets, Europeans' share slid, led by travel-related companies, and U.S. stock futures pointed to a lower open as investors worried over the impact of rising corona case numbers, which seems to go up and down all the time. I mean, the stock market, when, hey, a vaccine, it goes up, and then people are worried about it for some reason, then it goes back down. The British pound weakened for a third day as well. So one theme comes up repeatedly in conversations with crypto insiders, just how fast the industry is moving. Even jaded pros are sometimes astonished and annoyed at how much new information they have to process each day. Contrast that dynamic with the pace of progress in the U.S. stock market, where lately economic stimulus seems to be the only thread in the news. There are reports of proposed stimulus bills from Congress, which still hasn't gone through yet. Speculation over who might benefit most from stimulus, and analysis on whether the stimulus is already priced in. Bitcoin price is stagnated around $19,000. So on Monday, a unit of Wells Fargo, the giant and at least for the past several years beleaguered U.S. bank, published a 7-page report devoting a full page to Bitcoin, which they say cryptocurrency investing is a bit like living in the early days of the 1850s gold rush. According to the report from Wells Fargo Institute, and they say, as we roll into 2021, we'll be discussing the digital asset space more, its upside and its downside. That's an explicit indication that even more attention is coming from coming towards the way of cryptocurrencies, not less as the calendar year rolls over. But it turns out that Bitcoin itself isn't moving particularly quickly, at least by the historical standards of the underlying blockchain network, and that might be a bullish indicator that we've been stuck at this sort of 19,000 for at least a little while now, which is interesting how we haven't dipped too hard. Although today there was a reasonable dip, and I couldn't really find an explanation of that reasonable dip. The only thing I'm really going to say is that, again, December and January have been historically grim months for cryptocurrencies. Now, I can't really say for the stock market so much, but just kind of go back and look at the prices in December, January of cryptocurrency, and it's never been particularly amazing. 2018 had the 3,200 Bitcoin. 2017 was sort of the difference of them, and that it went to 20,000, but then really, really dipped afterwards. Also 2019, kind of mediocre as well. So we'll have to see how it goes. It's hard to say with the pandemic and with the holidays and all that stuff. People typically sell off a little bit. But moving on to different news. So aside from that, Wells Fargo is going to be thinking about Bitcoin. And I think a lot of banks and a lot of institutions, a lot of companies are going to be thinking about Bitcoin in 2021. Again, it's sort of a monkey see, monkey do with companies. They're sort of sitting back. They don't really want to touch it. And then they see all these other people making a lot of money with it. So then they kind of slowly step in until it just explodes. And basically every company will have to at some point in order to keep up with the market, whether they got to make their own coin or whether they got to label things coins or whether they got to directly invest into Bitcoin. They're going to have to. So Mt. Gox users prepare to get back $2.6 billion of Bitcoin. This is sort of a double-edged sword here. So on one end, I really do hope the Mt. Gox victims get their Bitcoin back. On the other end, $2.6 billion of Bitcoin is no joke, and it's going to lead to, well, quite frankly, a lot more Bitcoin in circulation. And probably a lot of people selling. Mt. Gox's exchange hack lawsuit could soon conclude with 140,000 Bitcoin distributed to former users. In 1 week, the Mt. Gox exchange saga may finally conclude. So on December 15th, an estimated allocation of 137,891 Bitcoin will be distributed to users who lost funds following Mt. Gox's shutdown in 2014. I have also heard that December 15th is just sort of the last date anybody can claim, and then they can actually probably push the can down the road a little bit further before they actually finally, since 2014, give the Bitcoin back to people. Because I really don't think anybody's actually gotten their Bitcoin back yet, and this has been going on. I remember reporting on the Mt. Gox actually getting their money back and the whole lawsuit deal at least a couple years back. So this has been an ongoing thing for a long time, and I don't think everybody's going to get their Bitcoin back on December 15th, but apparently it at least concludes an era of it, and pushing the can down the road is probably what they're going to do for as long as they can. The Mt. Gox shutdown is one of the most infamous events. The Japanese exchange abruptly ceased operations, announcing it had lost 850,000 Bitcoin in various attacks. And there's actually quite a number of documentaries on the Mt. Gox attack. And the owner, the CEO of Mt. Gox, is a very interesting guy. And sort of an engineer kind of guy, but like he basically failed miserably at running the exchange, and there was this slow leak in the hot wallet, and it was basically a slow leak over time that had led to their insolvency. So it wasn't just like this one big attack. It was more like there was this leak going on. Somebody had control of the hot wallet or something like that and was just slowly siphoning Bitcoin off for quite a while until everybody just couldn't get their Bitcoin back. One day when the prices were totally different on Mt. Gox and totally different on various other exchanges, and you couldn't actually withdraw from Mt. Gox, so the prices were actually wildly different. Bitcoin was just a few established cryptocurrencies at the time. Mt. Gox is responsible for handling around 70% of its transactions. The event caused several early Bitcoin investors to lose their holdings. It remains central to the cryptos community, often repeated, not your keys, not your coins. The upcoming distribution event will see the stash of recovered Bitcoin worth $2.6 billion go to a number of former Mt. Gox users. Bitcoin was only trading at around $700 when Mt. Gox halted all withdrawals in February 2014. It's seen an increase in value of roughly 2,600% since then, which could be a windfall for recipients. Due to the significant increase in value since 2014, it's possible that a number of recipients could sell their newly received Bitcoin on the open market. That could create a bearish landscape if sentiment suddenly changes as a result of the distribution. Members of crypto Twitter have aired their concerns over the pending deadline. Set Mt. Gox outflow alert, manage your risk. it could be bearish signal as supplying 150,000 Bitcoin to the market. So we collected their address labels. So the one event I am most concerned, for lack of a better word, about this month is the Mt. Gox thing on December 15th. We are just ranging at the moment with no clear signal up or down. And since I don't scalp moves like this, I will stay out of the market for now. So yeah, there are a few people actually worried about this. And again, I don't want to be entirely worried about it in the sense that like, oh, I just don't want my Bitcoin to go down. But I do at the same time think that everybody from Mt. Gox should be made whole, at least as much as they can. The problem is the price increased so much since then. If you had one Bitcoin then, you're definitely not going to get a full Bitcoin back now. So you're not going to get a one for one because the price has increased 2,600%. And so you're probably going to get quite a bit less Bitcoin than you originally had. But still, 2.6 billion, 140 plus thousand, 150,000 nearly Bitcoin, or excuse me, about 137,000 or so. Still quite a bit to just toss into the markets and sort of wash out the Bitcoin a little bit more, which is unfortunate, double-edged sword. Moving on, Bitcoin Darknet Silk Road movie acquired by Lionsgate to premiere in February. So an upcoming feature film titled Silk Road will hit theaters in the U.S. in February, according to Lionsgate, which announced Monday that it has acquired the movie. The American-Canadian entertainment company plans to release the film on February 19th in U.S. theaters, digital and video on demand. So basically, probably like pretty much straight to DVD. It says that it will then be available on Blu-ray and DVD on February 23rd. So it's basically straight to DVD. I mean, which is okay. I mean, I think I might like actually try to check this movie out. It might be good. But basically, they're saying that it's going to be in theaters on digital and video on demand for 4 days. Straight to DVD. But Silk Road movie is based on the Rolling Stone article called Dead End on Silk Road by David Kushner. The movie is written for the screen and directed by Tiller Russell. Philosophical 20-something Ross Ulbricht creates Silk Road, a darknet website that sells narcotics, while DEA agent Rick Bowden goes undercover to bring him down. So it seems pretty all right. I'm not sure who Nick Robinson, who starred in Jurassic Park, portrays Ulbricht in Silk Road. Jason Clarke, who played John Connor in Terminator. Genesis plays the DEA agent. So actually some reasonably high actors in this. I remember there was a Satoshi Nakamoto movie where it was like a dark comedy where Satoshi Nakamoto gets kidnapped by the NSA and then they like torture him to get information out of him, something like that. I don't know how that's a dark comedy. So it sounds like a really dark comedy, but I suppose the context is probably a little bit humorous in some way. This seems interesting. Now, the whole Silk Road thing, Satoshi never liked the Silk Road, so interesting fact there. Satoshi actually hated the Silk Road. He thought it brought a lot of bad press to Bitcoin. He also thought WikiLeaks brought bad press to Bitcoin because Bitcoin at the time was sort of a growing cryptocurrency. It was still really small. And he really just wanted a nice, smooth road. It was really strange. Satoshi Nakamoto was kind of a hard to read guy, I think. Just one, because we just have text of him. But in some ways, he was like really against the banks and really wanted to make this altruistic cryptocurrency, or at least apparently by his writings, and that everybody gets to use it. It's for the lower person. It's for the everyday person, I suppose. It's for these microtransactions online. It's for everybody's CPU. Everybody can do it. For the people, by the people type deal. And then yet he didn't like the Silk Road and he didn't like the bad press. So is bad press, you know what I mean? Like it just seems kind of weird that it would seem like you would enjoy that sort of thing. Like, hey, like nobody knows who I am, so why not let the Silk Road use it? Why not let WikiLeaks use it? This is what Bitcoin is made for. This is what the people are wanting to use it for. But he really did not like that bad press. And as for the Silk Road itself and Ross Ulbricht, there's a lot of people who are trying to get presidents and get Ross Ulbricht out of prison, because he did receive a life sentence for the Silk Road, which is surprising. I think the sentence is surprising, but not the actual sentencing. Like the length of the sentence, but not actually being sentenced. So first of all, I want to watch this movie. I want a little bit more information. I'm sure it's going to be informative in a way. But at the same time, I just think to myself, like, how silly are you, Ross Ulbricht? I mean, you made a darknet website that sells drugs of all sorts. And I'm not saying, drugs are bad. Some drugs are bad. But, selling acid, selling various drugs over the internet, it's probably a bad idea. Like, if I had a friend, like, let me just say, if like I had a friend and he was just like, oh yeah, like I'm creating this darknet website and I'm gonna make a lot of Bitcoin off of it. I'm like, you're gonna probably go to prison, like, right? He's just like, nah. I'm like, dude, no, you definitely go to prison. They watch the darknet, right? Like, we have the NSA and stuff and the FBI, like, they can totally track you. Like, no, they can't. Okay, buddy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like gee, I wonder if I'm gonna get caught doing this. Yeah, probably. So kind of his own fault. But full life sentence for it? Eesh, I don't know. I think they were trying to make an example out of him. And I think the people that do the very first crime of its kind, I suppose, are made example of, and they get the worst sentence. But moving on, Citi downgrades MicroStrategy stock after its bold Bitcoin bet. So MicroStrategy was downgraded to sell from neutral on Tuesday as a stock, as a company, I suppose. And I was just talking about MicroStrategy for the past two videos, and I've talked about MicroStrategy months ago when they decided to buy like $250 million in Bitcoin, and then just a few days ago they bought like $50 million in Bitcoin, another $50 million, and now yesterday they claimed that they're going to buy $400 million in Bitcoin. And so shares of MicroStrategy fell on Tuesday after Citibank reportedly downgraded the business intelligence firm over its disproportionate Bitcoin focus. So I don't know anything about this sort of topic, but it is a pretty disproportionate Bitcoin focus. They're a company. They're not an investment company, and they're just basically taking all their funds and putting it into Bitcoin. Which, hey, that's pretty awesome because I like Bitcoin. But it's a pretty bold move. I'm not sure about being downgraded over it, but it is a pretty bold move indeed. I mean, we're talking like if they do the 400 million, we're talking something along the lines of nearly $700 million that they have invested, that they would have invested if they go through with the 400 million, and that's a hefty chunk of change in Bitcoin. So Citi analyst Tyler Radke issued a sell rating on MSTR shortly after the company announced it was raising money to buy more Bitcoin. Radke says CEO Michael Saylor's disproportionate focus on Bitcoin puts investors at considerable risk, especially after an overextended rally since September. MSTR's Bitcoin investment has returned $250 million or worth $26 per share since August 20th. While impressive, it pales in comparison to the 172% return in the stock. At the current stock price, our analysts suggest that the market is pricing it in a much more optimistic valuation scenarios for the core business and Bitcoin. MicroStrategy's share price has been surging since August when the company first announced its Bitcoin play. Many investors view MSTR as an indirect investment in Bitcoin, given the company's vast digital currency reserves. On Monday, MicroStrategy revealed its plan to allocate another $400 million in Bitcoin treasures. To do so, the company plans to issue $400 million in convertible senior notes, as Cointelegraph reported. $400 million would increase the company's Bitcoin reserves by more than 20,800. So, in a little bit of trouble. Sooner or later here, we're going to have to start doing some videos that start off with, oh boy, what did MicroStrategy do now? It's looking like they're getting in a little bit of trouble from buying a little bit too much Bitcoin. And I get it, right? It's just always buying a little bit too much Bitcoin, and you're like, man, I got that much money now, but I wouldn't sell all my Bitcoin. I think I need to buy more Bitcoin. I get you, MicroStrategy. I totally get you, but good luck with that. Moving on, don't buy Bitcoin, warns wealth manager. We're likely going to see cryptocurrencies collapse. So the price of Bitcoin surged more than 15% Tuesday and briefly crossed the 5,000 mark for the first time. It's still well below the all-time it hit in December 2017 of near 20,000. Other virtual currencies saw price jumps too. But before you start buying cryptocurrency, though, consider the advice of Peter Malik, certified financial planner, president of wealth management firm Creative Planning. Most likely, we're going to see cryptocurrencies collapse. Oh boy, another one of these guys. So basically, this guy, Peter Malik. So I just want to make sure everybody knows here, this is a pretty interesting guy. And he's a financial planner. And apparently, I mean, he's probably pretty okay. I get it. He says it's possible that maybe one or two will work out in the future, cryptocurrencies. He basically called, when Bitcoin was at $5,000, to basically told all of his investors and stuff, do not buy Bitcoin. Don't buy Bitcoin. It's going to collapse. And then a few months later, oh my God, it's $20,000. Sure it is. But he says, in the meantime, if you buy cryptocurrency, you get no income. It's not a real investment. It's speculation, even though it's worth $20,000. Well, almost. I think it's like 18,000 some now. But either way, I don't see how you're not getting any income. Let's continue with his explanation of this. It just doesn't make, I don't know. He's just trying to get you to invest his way so we can get that sousy commission. You ain't going to get no commission with your Bitcoin. Instead, invest in things that are going to pay you to own them. You mean like Bitcoin? I mean, kind of like Bitcoin. Anyway. He says, own real estate. That's kind of a good idea, though, when you're collecting rent. Own stocks when you're collecting, where you're collecting dividends. Excuse me, where you're collecting rent, and own stocks where you're collecting dividends. Own bonds where you're collecting yield. As a general rule of thumb, you don't want to own something that's not going to pay you, says Malik. But I mean, $5,000 or $20,000, so very, very silly. So don't listen to these guys. Bitcoin eventually one day is going to be worth a lot of money. I mean, we got a lot of halvenings to go. We got a lot of institutions to continue buying. We got PayPal, soon to be Venmo, and it's just a matter of I think, like, if I could just forward in the future of my videos, I'm going to be talking about how blah 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 company is now buying cryptocurrency, and so on and so on. We're always going to see dips. We're always going to see higher lows every year. So don't worry about so much of the highs. Worry about how low it gets and how it's a higher low than the previous year and the previous year and the previous year, and that means that your base investment is increasing every year. And with the rarity, with the media headlines that are just exploding lately, we have ourselves a pretty good investment, at least with Bitcoin. Careful on those altcoins. So Bitcoin at 18,281 today. The market taking sort of a thunderous hit. Ethereum down from, $600+ to 551. XRP dropped 5 cents, 5 or 6 cents. I think it was like 61 cents last video, something like that. I don't know what it was. As soon as I find out, I'd love to put that in a video, though. I'm sure it's all those people that post on cryptocurrency Reddit and stuff like that that say, oh, look, I used my Bitcoin gains to buy my dream Porsche. Hey, screw you, buddy. You sold your Bitcoin and sold everybody out. But it probably wasn't them. No, probably whale sell-offs or something like that. We could take a little closer look at the Bitcoin chart here, and you can kind of see that it was pretty sudden. It looked like we actually had one here, which sort of just made everybody confused a little bit. And then you could see, I think there was another attempted one, but it was saved by buyers. And then you can see like the sort of the buyer anxiety at the 20,000 mark here, at the nearly 20,000 mark, that it just, people just do not want to go over the 20,000. There's probably a lot of sell walls near the 20,000 point on your exchange or various exchanges. And you got to admit here that there's a little bit of buyer anxiety. Do you really want to buy and spend as much as possible at $19,000 when you know that 3 years ago it reached just over that and then collapsed? Not to say that this year is the same as 3 years ago, but it's sort of in everybody's mind. This is sort of in the back of your mind, your conscious going, maybe we should wait for a dip. Maybe it's a little high right now. We've certainly learned that over the years. Don't buy at the top of the, so again, there's a little bit of buyer anxiety, and then you look at the one day, and you could see there was a big old sell-off from someone or somewhere, which sort of rocked it just a little bit here. And then there's more and more buyer anxiety. And then it looks like those other whales, or some whale somewhere basically saw, hey, look, it's starting to really get weak here. So I'm going to sell off, and then dropped it a few $100 more. And then we've gone down since. So are we going to recover? Almost certainly. But there might be just a period over December, January, where we might have pretty stagnant or pretty lame prices. It might even go down a little bit. This is nothing unusual for this time of the year. Usually we have a good pump, like once per summer is usually the case. Like once per summer, there's just this random pump out of nowhere, and then usually in the fall, and then by the end of the year, a little bit stagnant. But We'll have to see. Who knows? Maybe Grayscale will come along and save us with another billion-dollar purchase. But that's all I have for you guys today. Once again, Coinbase Earn is going to be in the description. It's going to be in the top of the comments as well. There's going to be two different links. Click them both if you want. It's for Band and it is for Compound. And again, it's Coinbase Earn. So if you haven't tried that yet, if you do have a Coinbase account, click them. It is literally free cryptocurrency. And it's like they ask you like 3 questions, and the questions are so lame that they basically give you the answer. You can't go wrong. So it's literally free crypto. So why not? It's like one of the few shill links that I actually believe in, where you get something and I get something out of it as well. But make sure you like, subscribe, share the video, social media in the description below. Check those out too if you get the opportunity. And as usual, I'll see you guys next time.